David Okafor had a routine for the coffee. He arrived at the kitchen on the 32nd floor at 7:45 every morning. He set the brewing equipment running in a specific order that he had worked out over 8 months of daily repetition, the large carafe first, then the single serve for whoever had requested decaf, then the specialty orders that the executive assistants collected in a shared notes document that was updated every Sunday evening. He had memorized the notes document. He did not need to check it anymore. He knew that the CFO took oat milk, no sugar. He knew the general counsel wanted her coffee the color of weak tea and would send it back if it was any darker. He knew the new director of acquisitions had started ordering an extra shot 3 weeks ago, around the time the merger negotiations had started going sideways. David noticed things. He had always noticed things. It was, his daughter Grace had told him once, with the cheerful authority of a 9-year-old stating a fact, his most important skill. "You see everything, Daddy," she had said, "even the stuff people try to hide." He had asked her what she meant. She had thought about it and said, "Like we." And someone is sad but pretending not to be. "You always know." He had asked how she knew he knew. She had said, "Because you always do the thing that helps without making them explain why they needed help." He had been quiet for a moment. Then he had said, "You are going to be extraordinary." She had gone back to her drawing and said, without looking up, "I know. So are you, Daddy." He pushed the coffee cart down the hall toward the boardroom at 8:15. Same as every morning, and nodded to the assistant who held the door for him, same as every morning, and began setting up the service station at the side of the room while the executives filtered in for the 8:30 meeting. Ellison Capital Partners occupied the top 4 floors of Meridian Place, a building in the financial district that had been constructed 8 years ago, and that David, who had owned the land it sat on and commissioned its construction, found aesthetically satisfactory. Clean lines, good bones, the architect had done well. He had bought the land 15 years ago, when he was 31 and running a private investment portfolio with a strategy so patient and so counterintuitive that his advisors had SP. And the first 3 years trying to talk him out of it, and the next 3 years taking credit for it. He had done very well. Then his wife got sick. And the world that David had built around numbers and patience and the long view had reorganized itself overnight into a world that was only about one thing: she was sick. And then she wasn't there. And then he was alone with a 2-year-old daughter and an apartment that was too quiet and a professional network that called in the first month and not in the second. He had stepped back. Not dramatically, not publicly. David did not do anything dramatically or publicly. He had transferred management of his portfolio to a team he trusted, set up the appropriate structures, and disappeared from the industry in the particular way that a very private person disappears. Completely, and without announcement, and in such a way that most people assume he had simply retired. He had not retired. He had raised Grace. And when Grace turned 7 and was settled in school and was clearly going to be fine, better than fine, she was going to be exceptional, David had started paying attention to the world again. What he found when he started paying attention again was that a great deal of his investment infrastructure was running well without him, that his net worth had continued to grow during his absence in the unhurried way of money that is properly managed, and that one of his largest real estate holdings, Meridian Place, was occupied by a financial firm called Ellison Capital Partners, whose managing director, a woman named Claire Ellison, had built something remarkable in the 7 years since the building opened. He had become curious about it. He had thought, at first, that he would simply review the reports. But David had always believed that you could not truly understand something you had not observed directly, up close, over time. He had built his investment career on this principle. He visited the companies he invested in. He talked to the workers. He ate in the cafeterias. He noticed what the quarterly reports did not say. So when the facilities management company sent out a listing for a food service position, at Meridian Place, someone to manage the executive floor catering, David had applied. He had given his name as David Ford, his middle name and his mother's maiden name. He had listed 8 months of catering experience, which was technically accurate if you counted the catering company he had invested in 6 years ago and whose operations he had studied thoroughly enough to have managed them himself. He had gotten the job. That had been 8 months ago. Every morning he made the coffee. Every morning he pushed the cart. Every morning, the executives of Ellison Capital Partners walked past him with the particular non-seeing of people in a hurry. And every morning, David observed with the patience of a man who understood that information, gathered carefully over time, was the most valuable asset that existed. He had decided, going to invest in Ellison Capital Partners. He wanted to be certain it was the right decision. He was almost certain. He was waiting for one more thing. Claire Ellison was 44 years old. She had started Ellison Capital in a period when most people who looked like her were told, in the polite and persistent way of institutions protecting themselves, that the door they were knocking on was for someone else. She had started anyway. She had been wrong about some things and right about more, and she had built a firm that managed $11 billion in assets and had a reputation for the kind of principled investment strategy that made her clients occasionally nervous and consistently wealthy. She also, and David had not known this from the reports, had only discovered it through 8 months of morning observation. She came in on Saturdays, not to catch up, not to make calls. She came in and sat at the conference room table with a yellow legal pad and wrote, by hand, for about 2 hours. What she wrote, he did not know. She never left the pad out. But he had noticed that she always looked different when she was done, not lighter, exactly, but more organized, as if she had sorted something that needed sorting. He had begun making her a coffee on Saturdays and leaving it outside the conference room door at 8:30. He did not knock. He did not announce it. He left it and went back to the kitchen. The first Saturday, she had found it and looked down the hallway with an expression of mild confusion. The second Saturday, she had looked down the hallway and nodded at him when she saw him. The third Saturday, she had said thank you. The fourth Saturday, she had said, how did you know I'd be here? He had said, yo, you come every week. She had looked at him. I didn't think anyone noticed, she said. I notice most things, he said. She had looked at him in the particular way that people look at you when they are trying to decide whether you are interesting or not. Then she had gone back into the conference room. The following Wednesday was when it went wrong. Or rather, it was when something that had been wrong for a while became impossible to ignore. David had arrived at 7:45 to find the executive floor in a state of controlled alarm. 3 of the senior partners were already in the main conference room. One of the junior associates was crying quietly in the hallway. Claire's assistant was on the phone and using the expression of someone who is delivering bad news they don't fully understand yet. He set up the coffee. He listened. He had gotten very good at listening in rooms where people moved around him as if he were furniture. What he understood over the next 40 minutes was this. A managing partner at the firm, a man named Hargrove, who had been with Claire since the beginning, had been conducting unauthorized trades in a client account. Not large, not dramatic, just consistent. Just enough over 3 years to constitute fraud. The regulatory notification had arrived that morning. The firm was going to be investigated. The investigation would, at minimum, disrupt operations and damage the firm's reputation at a critical moment. They were in the middle of raising a new fund. David finished the coffee setup. He took the empty catering cart back to the kitchen. He put away the equipment. He took off his apron and folded it neatly on the counter. He went back to the executive floor. He knocked on Claire's office door. She looked up. She was holding the regulatory letter. And she had the expression of someone who has not yet decided how frightened to be because they are still trying to understand the full shape of what they are facing. Mr. Ford, she said. I need to tell you something, David said. And I need you to hear all of it before you respond. She set down the letter. Sit down, she said. He sat. He told her his name. His real one. He told her about Meridian Place, that he owned it, had owned it for 15 years, that she had been his tenant for 7 of them. He told her about the investment portfolio, about stepping back, about GRAC. About the 8 months of morning coffee and Saturday observations in the process of becoming certain. He told her that he had been planning to approach her about a significant investment in Ellison Capital. That the investigation did not change this. That if anything, it clarified the picture because what he had observed over 8 months was a firm with genuine integrity at its core. And a managing director who came in on Saturdays with a legal pad because she was still, after all these years, trying to get it right. That was the kind of company he invested in. He told her that he had contacts at the regulatory body from his years in the industry, that he knew exactly what the investigation process looked like, and that with proper legal preparation and transparent cooperation, a firm with Ellison's record was very unlikely to face anything beyond a formal reprimand and a fine. He told her he would like to help. Claire Ellison listened to all of this. She was quiet for a long moment after he finished. Then she said, You made my coffee every morning for 8 months. Yes, you own this building. Yes, and you're a. She stopped. She picked up her phone, looked at some. thing, set it back down. She had clearly just searched his name. You manage a private portfolio worth. She stopped again. Yes, David said. She looked at him. Why? She said. He thought about how to answer this. He thought about Grace, who was 9 and already too observant for her own comfort, who drew pictures of cities and asked him complicated questions about buildings. Because I needed to be sure, he said. I've been wrong before about where to put my trust. After a certain point, the only way to be sure is to look directly. She was quiet. I have a daughter, he said. She's 9. She asks me why I care so much about what things are made of, the insides of things, not the outside. I tell her it's because the outside is easy. Anyone can make a good outside. It's what's holding the thing together that matters. Claire looked at him for a long time. Mr. Rockefeller, she said. His real name. She had looked it up. David, he said. David, if you were going to be this involved in my firm, if you were going to watch my people and my processes and my Saturday mornings for 8 months, you could have just called me. I know, he said, but you didn't. No. Why not? He thought about Grace, about what she had said. You see everything, Daddy, even the stuff people try to hide. Because on the phone, David said, people show you what they want you to see. In a room, over time, you see what they actually are. A pause. I wanted to see what you actually are. Claire was quiet. And, she said, you're the kind of person who comes in on Saturdays, David said. You're the kind of person who drives a company for 17 years on principle, even when principle is inconvenient. You're the kind of person whose junior associates cry in the hallway when something goes wrong, not because they're afraid of you, but because they care about what you've built. A long silence. That's what I was looking for, David said. Claire set down the regulatory letter. She looked at it. She looked at him. Mr. Okafor, she said. I think we have a great deal to discuss. The investigation was resolved in 4 months. David's network and his legal team's preparation, combined with Claire's complete and transparent cooperation with the regulators, produced exactly the outcome David had predicted: a formal reprimand, a fine, and a compliance framework that actually made tea. He firm more structurally sound than it had been before. The new fund closed at its target 3 weeks after the investigation concluded. David was the lead investor. He told Grace about it on a Saturday afternoon, sitting in the kitchen of their apartment while she drew a building, something tall and angular with what appeared to be a rooftop garden. He told her about Meridian Place, about Ellison Capital, about the 8 months of coffee. She listened with the seriousness she brought to everything important. When he was done, she looked at her drawing. You looked at the insides, she said. Yes. Like a building. Yes. She nodded. She went back to her drawing. Then, without looking up, Dad, the building I'm drawing, it has a coffee station on every floor. He looked at the drawing. She was right. There was a small square on each level, meticulously labeled. Why? He said. Because, she said, with the certainty of a 9-year-old who has thought this through completely. That's where people tell the truth, when they think no one important is listening. David looked at his daughter. He thought about 7:45 in the morning, and a coffee cart, and a conference room. Full of people who had looked through him every day for 8 months. Grace, he said. You are going to be extraordinary. She didn't look up. I know, she said. So are you, Daddy. He smiled. He looked out the window at the city, at the buildings, at all of it, the outsides and the insides, the coffee stations and the conference rooms, the things that held together and the things that needed fixing. All of it, endlessly worth watching.